entrances?
Yeah, oh, he was very excited about the mezzanine entrances,
Yeah.
and he was also spoke very highly of you as well. I think you really helped him out having that Deluxe and being able to run that for him. So
Yep.
I think you worked good as a team. Um, but what I was saying was, by you having that experience in the field, that can help you to realize, hey, when I'm putting this building together, we might have problems with the crane reach or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what my goal is the real power is if we can put more information in front of all the people, right? That the real people that are putting it together, you can
Mm-hmm.
get better feedback at an earlier time.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
And I think that opportunity was missed many times on this job. And I'm sure it's been an extremely frustrating job for a lot of people. It was a very complex job. And these things generally are that way. Now, the biggest problem from a computer standpoint of this job, sort of funny, I wanted to give you a little bit of a 5 minute. You got lucky as hell being your age. Have you ever seen what's on my screen right now? Have you ever seen any AutoCAD?
Nope. Never touched it.
Well, this is the AutoCAD file for the framing. Okay. Now, you can imagine you've seen a little bit of the BIM coordination meetings and stuff like that. I mean, I know you have a little bit of a privilege with Dan on the job that you get to stretch your wings a little bit. But you've seen how hot and emergency type things there was on the BIM. All right. How people need stuff right away. Can
Mm-hmm.
you imagine if you're working in your file right here? I'm in this view, and I just want to simply zoom into this circle. I just rolled my wheel and now I wait. And you're going to watch how long I wait.
I
Yeah,
mean, yeah,
it's
already.
it's not funny. It's not funny because someone, they're getting yelled at for not having these areas done, and they're trying to do it in this software that they think can do it. And it's going to be real easy for you to put down AutoCAD. It was very difficult for me because I was an expert at this software. What these people didn't understand is you couldn't build with 3D solids. And because all of this stuff, because you know my computer's no slouch, you understand right now it's zooming, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're seeing, you don't even get to see the wheel, it just turns into this arrow, and you don't even know if your computer's running anymore. Now, the problem was because this was CAD. In this, we drew lines. This is, look, the home. And the funny part is they tried to make it easier for the transition for people. They instituted what was called the ribbon. And if you notice, that ribbon across the top should have some things that look almost similar to what's in Revit, except for
Mm.
the fact that what you're really drawing is lines, polylines, circles, arcs. Those are the objects that you got to draw with.
And it
Okay.
looks like the images they used are still from Windows 98
Um. Yeah.
compared to Revit.
Yeah. Well, they had no. They both added the ribbons at the same time. You got to understand, Misty and I, we cranked out some incredible jobs in AutoCAD. Okay, before Revit was around. The problem is when you started getting three dimensional and you started building with anything that was the wrong kind of object, which these people, I promise you, what you're seeing in framing, which they probably struggled and spent countless hours, because you can only imagine how long it's taken to work on this stuff when your zooms are that slow. Now, granted, no one in AutoCAD would ever be running with, let's see, this was under visualize. And then there was oh, what is it? It's underneath this window. Right there, shaded. But as I was saying, and you're going to see how long this takes, but this is going to, no one would ever run with shaded in AutoCAD because everyone knew that that didn't work. So generally, this person was working in this kind of configuration, which the zooms aren't nearly as bad, but there's still going to be those problems. All right. Let me bring Eric in. So the gist of it is, so you can see I can zoom, but if I double click on my wheel, watch this, it's gonna take forever. Okay, so what ends up happening in CAD is it's like there's just these humongous time sucks. Don't get me wrong, you can quickly do the same thing in Revit. That's why people who were used to it in AutoCAD just think it's a normal thing in Revit. But in the next class that we get into, where is basically how do you get one of these jobs? Because that's what I'm going to want you to do. I'm going to want you to take a job and I'm going to want you to sheet it and prepare that thing for BIM coordination. Because I honestly believe that if you do that, you are 6 months ahead on a job and you could really save the job from going down. Because when they finally release the drawings, you do not have much time to fix what the engineers have put in to make it actually fit. Okay. And I'll tell you that building this stuff, this came 6 months after the sign-ins for the drawings. When everyone signed the drawings, they had less than a quarter of this building built. Right now, I think there's probably somewhere around 80, maybe 85% of the way. And if you're too slow, you miss the boat. And that's one of the biggest problems of the coordination that's happened on that job. Because after all, you'll quickly see, if we pull this guy, oh, that's going to be fun for me to figure out how to get that up. Oh no, I don't want that. Give me this snap to the screen. Don't be afraid to share your screen because we're going to be going to you soon. But let's get real. Eric never would have run those 4 hydronic lines there if he knew the framing had to be put in like that. And I would imagine that Dustin probably just worked with them. And if the framing was already in, he knew where to go. And if the framing wasn't in, then he probably moved his stuff to a better location than there. Because you can see, I don't think that worked out. But I also know that none of this framing and diagonal bracing, which we warned them again and again and again on this job, none of that was in time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The big point that I'm trying to get across to you is that all came because of this idea of using AutoCAD on a BIM coordinated job. If you're trying to work with people who are doing it in AutoCAD, that they can put it in quickly, but they can't make it change. And the changes on the buildings, because Eric's now joined as well. Eric has a lot of years in on CAD. We actually went to Las Vegas to the Autodesk University somewhere in about 2000, 2001. And we said, we will never use Revit because we've mastered this CAD. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some neat things in CAD where they can actually draw walls, doors, and windows. And I think they even got into ductwork and stuff. The problem is the architecture that software was built on does not allow you to do what Revit does. And I'll be honest with you, you're smart with your age. You should be looking for the next software because the Revit is now getting antiquated a lot like the AutoCAD did. The problem is you can really accomplish a lot if you know how to deal with it. And I'm looking forward to you really tearing this up, bringing your video gaming capabilities, to the forefront.
Yeah, how I move too fast and make you dizzy.
No, it's not so much me. I've had a lot of, you got to remember, we did a lot of animations. So I used to get a lot of critiquing from my lovely wife. And that was something that she would always say, if you move too fast, you don't give the viewer a chance for the brain to see it, and they start to get dizzy. They get vertigo from it. They really do.
Right.
Me personally, you just pissed me off because I was about to tell you which button to click on, but you've already negated that by clicking on 7 other buttons and getting me confused. So that was how I wanted to start this discussion. Was the problem with CAD? You're fortunate that you don't have to learn CAD, but what I would say to you, you're gonna have to learn the next software because Autodesk has gotten very lazy and is no longer putting the efforts they should be putting into the software. So don't be surprised when a new software comes out. Okay. But as of right now, I think there's plenty of opportunities if you can run this software at a good speed. I want to see you click that fast when we get into building families. I want your goal to be that you can build a family from a submittal in less than 15 minutes. Because if you can make some serious bucks. Okay?
Right.
Because if we're going to get down to it, it's all about the families. In order for you to get that good, you and I are going to build a lot of families. We're going to have a duel, and I'm going to see if you can catch the sensei.
Okay.
Right? That's going to be our future class. That's going to be what really puts Rogue on the map because people don't know how to build families.
See,
Fair
I
enough?
missed it. Yeah, that sounds good to me. I missed it whenever you and Ginger built that one family of the diffuser, I
Oh my
believe it
God.
was.
That was the one you give in the beginner class. I'm looking forward to the advanced class. I'm looking forward to a point where I can say, Tyler, I want you to build 500 families. You and I need to get 500 families together to do this, to do
Right.
something very complex. I want to add families like crazy. I want to salvage. The thing is when I tried to build families last was in 2008 when the market crashed. And when it did, there was no architecture work. Now, I'm not telling you that that's what's going to happen. But what I'm telling you is I want to go back and revisit what I did in 2008 because what I did was one, free training. And what I did number two was building families. And I never realized how much the families that I built make that library, which we're going to get into. And I want to challenge you to do. Those were what really made me have the power to do a lot of the awesome stuff. I love how it gives me that notification for YouTube. I need to turn those notifications off. You can do that, can't you?
Yeah.
You
Turn the
still
little
haven't
bell off.
shared your screen. What is up with your screen, buddy?
I was watching you. Forgive me.
Yeah, well, see, if I'm talking and you're drawing, then people are seeing things happen. Oh, you already took it over, huh?
I just started streaming. Did it auto bring it to the stage?
Yes, it does.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And late in the class, late today, we're going to talk about that screen that just came up, but not right now.
I thought it was just keep trying to tell me I'm running out of days.
No, it's just warning you that you're running a trial version. Is all it is.
I gotcha.
It would be like that way if you're in front of a company and your computer was to crash and you were to pull it back up, it would show that you don't really have a license. You're running a trial.
So, educate me, because something was going on with this. It kept giving me an error.
Yep. Yep. Because you're not drawing the way Revit wants you to draw. Remember, it's not trying. It wasn't designed for you to really draw the pipe. It's really designed to do the connect. So let's look at that a different way. What are you trying to do?
Simply connect that to there like we did last time, but it's just
All right. So what you needed to do was orbit that up so you can see that elbow on the bottom. You needed to pick that little elbow. Up at the top, you say connect into. And now you pick that pipe out there. Or that says, oh, you were trying to draw, that's a tank you were trying to draw it to.
Yep.
So delete the elbow. All right, you're trying to connect the sanitary. Part of the reason is because that thing was sloped, right? Where, show me where that says that that's sanitary. Right? Now go back up to that tank. All right, now add a pipe to that. How would you add a pipe to that? My recommendation is, see, now here's a common problem. All the toilets and sinks that Revit provides you have those connections so they don't go in the right direction. What they're wanting you to do now is to right now, you've got to go up higher than 10 foot 2 3/4. Where do I see that number? All right. If you make that number go higher than that, then you could come up straight out of the tank. What I'm seeing that you're not seeing is you've got to come up and out of that tank. Right? Now, if you pick that little guy on the bottom, oh, we got rid of him, didn't we? There you go.
The elbow.
Yep, that's fine. You draw that pipe. But I will tell you what you're trying to do when you're trying to draw that with that slope. See, now last time you were probably trying to draw it with slope.
Nope. I tried sloped first, and then I tried to not do sloped, and then because I realized if you slope it down, it's going to do nothing going back up.
That's right. It's telling you
Yeah.
that you're making an illegal move. Some of the fittings and some of the types will tell you that. Now, where is it telling you what it's doing when it's drawing that pipe? So, in other words, what I'm saying is you've got an elbow in there right now.
Mm-hmm.
Where did it tell you where to draw that and what type of elbow to draw?
It necked down because the fitting here and the pipe says here.
Nope.
No?
That pipe right now, that pipe type is chilled water. And inside of the chilled water, if we say edit type, that routing preferences. So that's where you get to pick. What does it do? Does it put in a T, or does it put in a spud or a tap? You know the difference between the two? Some people call those OLETs. The idea is you've got to tell it what type of elbows to use, what type of T's to use, or junctions to use, and whether it's a T or a tap. Okay? This is an important thing to understand, because this way, this is what it takes to draw the pipe appropriately. Now, what's the benefit of that? Well, sometimes when you're using the real dumb style that Autodesk provides you, they put this little tiny elbow on there, and you think you can make a turn, a two-para elbow in a smaller size than you actually can, because in the real life, that elbow's bigger. We got to be cognizant of that, okay? So that is the pipe type, as opposed to the other one, which was the pipe system, which that's where we put the green on. We get to tell it what kind of water. Let's go look at your pipe systems real quick. This is nope, you're not going to see it under there. Those are the pipe types. If we go to the families, we got to see this in the families. In the browser at the bottom. Down to families. right? Now down to pipe systems. It's probably still opened up because we had it opened up. Click on one of those. Click on one of those, any one of those guys. Fire protection drive. So this is where we can put on a lot of important things. What color the lines are, right? And that's under that edit. And exactly. Right. And you would end up probably making that red because it's fire protection. That was all good.
Right.
Then the other thing we can do is put the material, which we did that in the last one. So you don't need to do that again.
Yeah, but that's just where you can choose what it's made out of. Put a
Right.
pattern
And
to
if
it.
you went down to P for pipe, I bet you would see a bunch of different pipe styles that I've already got. Nope, you wanted that. There you go. Scroll down. Yeah, see, all those are ones that I created. So you would probably could duplicate the pipe hot water supply, right?
Yeah.
You want to get good at making those materials because that is beneficial for you.
Can you put periods in these? Yeah, you can.
You can. It's bad practice.
I would put the dash in it as well after pipe to keep it in line.
That's exactly
didn't
right.
see that.
You catch how I named that. I didn't. That's exactly right. Now, what I told Eric was, I always then, as soon as I do that rename again, and copy that to the clipboard. All right, because this is a frustration that a lot of people have. What I did with mine is, I like the render appearance, just in case someone was to render it, so that it renders a color the same as it's shaded. You'll notice that for my shading, I didn't change the color, but instead I put a checkbox in render appearance. Okay. So that means where the color is actually controlled is on the next tab. If you go to appearance. And here's the big problem that everyone has and makes the mistake on. Before you change anything, if you change anything right now, you're going to be changing my hot water supply. Okay? Because if you hit the little caret next to the word information, it says pipe hot water supply. You want the render material to match the same as your system. So in order to do that, what you have to do is in the top corner, there's two pieces of paper, I think it is. It's one of those two. That's it. Duplicate. Do that. And you see how it put the number 1 in there right after pipe hot water supply?
Yeah.
Nope. Down a little bit. Down a little bit right
Yeah.
there. Yep. I want you to paste your value back into there. And it's a weird paste. It never quite works right. Autodesk never fixed it. Now you can change the color and you're not changing the hot water. See, what ends up happening is if you don't catch on to this, you're like, I swear to God, my hot water was just red a minute ago. Why is my hot water a different color now? Does that make sense?
No, yeah. Now I see it's 3 different shades, but the appearance actually affects both of them.
Well, because right now that it, and let's go back to your view. So let's okay all the way out of here. So now what happens is you would see, you know where your shade value is down at the bottom? Yep. If you change that, nope, no, the other one. Right? You could now go to realistic and it would stay green. And if you didn't, the whatever pipe you made last week, it probably would have turned to gray, because this is one way to sort of get a rendering value. The realistic uses those rendered images.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? Also, obviously, there's a little is the lamp down there. Boy, it's been so long since I rendered, Eric. How do you render? Let's see.
Show rendering dialogue.
Yep, show rendering dialogue. Why don't you click on that just for fun?
So one thing, as far as the piping systems and the pipe families, it takes some time to know what you're trying to change is. if you can just get that burned into your head somehow, that's one of the biggest things. I still sometimes will, when I'm trying to change the fitting, I'll go to the wrong thing or whatever. I
Yeah.
think that those two are very convoluted and tied in together, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's probably because you walked away from Revit from mechanical and plumbing for so long when you went into the electrical stuff.
Yeah, but I still had to do the same stuff with conduit. I'm just saying the way the two interact, I always had a hard time. Like when the elbows.
But you see, that's where we can complain a little bit about Autodesk is why do they not have the conduit running the same way? Because they don't have conduit styles. You don't have cable tray styles that you can. I'm talking about the styles at the bottom.
No, I know what you're saying. I know
You only have the edit type. So
correct.
Ironically, for electrical, there's a lot you can't do.
Correct.
And if you remember, go ahead.
The other thing I was going to say with piping that's frustrating is if he were to run that system and he's got the wrong elbows and he's made that change, and you can do an update system.
Yeah.
What's the methodology? Why do I have to tab on the system and then remove the fittings? Why can't I just tab on the system?
You should be able to tab on the system. So what Eric's talking about is really something that we typically would want to not cover in our beginning class, but that's not what we want to do. We want to have a live interactive class. So let's see. And Misty, by all means, if you know anything about changing all those types, and we could test this on the big job to make sure this happens, but you should be able to just pick that pipe and what Eric's talking about. Pick that pipe, Tyler.
Okay.
It doesn't even give it to you. You have to take fittings and equipment off of it.
Did he tab onto all of it? Yeah,
he's got it all.
Yes. And so Eric's right. So don't take the fittings off because Eric, what you're talking about is a bad family. So
okay,
go to filter and go to filter, Tyler. Remember the funnel? Where's it at? Come on, buddy. You're fast. You know
there's two of them, Tyler. There's two of them.
He's gonna shoot you. Now take the mechanical equipment off. What Eric's saying is when you do that, it doesn't allow you to see. All right. So Eric's saying he wants you to remove the fittings from that list as well. And I don't think it was the fittings. I think it was that last plumbing fixture. Do one more. Do your filter one more time and take the plumbing fixture out. Now look at your contextual menu. Your contextual menu. Right.
Reapply type.
All right. I want
that
you to
one.
do
I think has to do with the families.
I think it does. And I want to test that. So just take out the bottom one. Don't leave the fittings in. Leave the fittings in. Say okay. Now it says reapply type. Now what's happening? What's happening, Tyler, is you don't realize you needed to select all of those pipes in that run.
Mm-hmm.
And then you needed to just have the pipes. So we would use the filter to take them out. And then what we're talking about is changing the style. So in other words, Eric's bringing up a very valid point. The engineers didn't care what kind of elbows and stuff were in it. Just the pipes. Take the fittings out too. See, now over there on the side, you can take this thing from pipe types, chilled water. Can you find where that's at? There you go. To one of those other type objects, like the heating water OLED. And you could reapply the type. Now, we just said you can't do that without having the fittings applied at the same time. And what Eric doesn't like is why can't it do it with the mechanical equipment in there? Nope. Now reapply the type.
Yeah,
Now,
I've only had it with pipes and fittings. Yeah.
if now, Tyler, right now, no, just pick on just that pipe, and I want you to right click and say create similar, or do a CS if you like, and pick on the middle of that pipe and come out 90 degrees like you were going to do a T. Now, see if this worked. What happens is you didn't get a T, instead, you got a tap. Can you zoom into that area? See the difference between a T and a tap,
Yeah.
right? That was because we just changed it from a type pipe that had T's in it to a type pipe that had Olets in it.
Hey, come on in. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't mean to distract from things. That's something I struggled with when I was dealing with all the stuff that came from the engineers. If I picked the fittings, it didn't seem to change the fittings. If I picked the pipes, it would change the fittings.
Yes, that is because of a bad family. That's what I determined it was on that project, is because of how the family was built. And when I swapped the families out, because understand that you could swap the families out in another way. Go zoom into one of those elbows, Tyler, and just pick that elbow and go up and change the type of elbow it is.
In
No.
properties.
He'll get there. Don't give him everything. Got to make that guy work a little bit.
To just pick anything.
Anything. That one there was the one I used for those crack units you placed on the roof today. And what they do is that actual type of family, you can, if you go to the properties, you can roll down a little bit. You'll find, no, scroll down a little bit. You'll find that keep going. Maybe I'm lying. Go back up. And more. There you go. The nominal radius. That's the, no, center to end is the number, the 8-inch. Go ahead and type in 1 foot. And go to your screen. If you don't go to your screen, it won't apply. See what that did? That I think that changes that radius of that thing. Try
Yeah,
again.
the travel.
Right. And that's because they told me the maximum bend that they could put in those
The line sets.
refrigerant lines. Exactly. And what happened is Autodesk doesn't give you that. It's almost impossible to find the proper ways to do that. That's why I say we need to create this library so that you're prepared, because what happens is that causes people to really struggle. And when you're trying to make great speed on the job because you're already behind, kills you.
So that kind of reminds me when we were on the tent doing all the HVAC add-ons they were doing, we had to find the travel every single time of each 90 that we had for 20-inch round, because we thought, hey, we ordered them 40 of them this time, the next 40 will be the same, but they weren't. So every single time we had to take measurements as we were going and find our travel.
And that can have an effect. And see, that's where people think that BIM LOD 400, you know what LOD stands for? You heard that term at all? I mean, I would have thought in your BIM classes that talked about, because that would be a contractual part of the process. You would say, typically a company would say, we expect you to do BIM at an LOD level 300, 400, or 500. And then there's some BIM manuals somewhere that tell you what those levels are. What
that
I'm
sounds
saying,
like that's the US version.
Yes.
Mine's all British. ISO 19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure they still refer to LOD. I promise you. If you went back and looked at the stuff that you had already covered, it probably didn't mean anything to you back then. And it's one of those ones that make you look smarter than everyone in the room when you say, oh, yeah, we modeled to an LOD 300 or 400. And everyone's like, oh, that must be good. It's sort of defined, but it's also sort of undefined right now. Okay, it's a little bit still the Wild West.
Yeah.
But at any rate, good sidetrack. Let's keep
Don't
moving.
don't most people run off BIM standards from Penn State's BIM standard practice?
Well, that was what I was wanting you to try to find out.
All right.
I don't. I'll be honest with you. It got so crazy. There were so many standards out there. I don't even know.
When I was doing the BIM management at Odell, I did a lot of research on that, and it seemed like most of the followed standards were from the Penn State Standard Guide. But that was back in 2009, 2010.
Correct. That's where I say, you know, some of that sort of got away. Some of it.
This is kind of where they get into that, but
Wait. I'll pull up your screen again. I took your screen down.
this is what my class was all about. ISO 19650, and then there's 2023, I believe. They have a couple different files.
I'd like to see that file naming convention. Show me that thing.
This one,
That's that.
naming convention. They review it every 5 years, so there should be a 2023. What was it called?
I'd be interested in getting into that because I'd like to know if they're doing a better naming than what we're doing. Because
Okay, this is it.
I really like it to make sense.
I mean, you open this document, and if I'm not mistaken, it's still in review. And this is something they were talking about in my class. This is where they're bringing BIM to 7D, and that's why they didn't teach Revit, is because they're not confident Revit's going to keep up with their expectations. When I was telling you about the 7D, they want to know the environmental impact it's going to have. They want to know what it's going to do when you tear this damn thing down. They want to project the entire life cycle of every single construction project, and that's what their government standard is in Sweden and Finland and a couple other ones.
Interesting.
Yeah, what was my BIM training from? Shit. Actually, it's right here on my certification. I don't fucking need to look it up. BRE Academy, that's who it was. These guys. Oh no, I spelled that wrong. I don't care. They have a model of their building that's 7D, and it shows the thermostat, everything. It's insane. This was the entire course I took. 1 and 2, project delivery information management and practice, and then using BIM.
Interesting.
And I mean, they got a lot to it.
Yeah.
Breen.
I don't want to call this without looking at it closer. But you know, I'll be honest with you. Remember, I've been doing this 30 years, 34 years, 35 years. I remember these same kind of pie in the sky ideas when the real company that was going to be doing it was MicroStation, Bentley Products. Bentley Products ruled the world even before AutoCAD. Okay. And
a lot of government stuff was MicroStation, Bentley. That's what I started. I was trained in AutoCAD, but my first job was in Bentley. Panther Stadium was done in Bentley.
And you're going to see all kinds of. You see that thing at the top where it says digital twins.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of what you're
Daleks.
talking about. What's that?
That's what Daleks talks about a lot too. I've noticed.
What the idea is that your building matches what's in your model.
Yeah.
Because then you can have that valid information for the lifespan of the building. Right now, I'll be honest, I don't see too many firms accomplishing that beyond the coordination for installation. The facilities management is still so early at its infancy. I don't think that, like you said, in Europe, they don't even think Revit's going to be capable of it. That's why they don't talk about it.
Yep.
And Revit right now is the most capable tool that's out there on the market. Please, anyone, you think you would argue otherwise?
I haven't researched it in a while, but when in 2012-ish, that was what it boiled down to. Bentley's wasn't it was pretty difficult to understand. And Archicad created massive files.
Well, but let's get real. Revit creates massive files
Yeah.
if you don't control it.
But it
Okay.
allows you to split it out. And maybe Archicad has evolved, but back when I was doing the research, it was one file. That was that.
And what have we always learned? I mean, because, you know, honestly, Eric, or not only did Eric learn MicroStation, so did Misty. See, because in the early days, and it really always has been, it was about adoption of the software. And that's what gets us to Revit. It is the most common software out there that works. The reason that the MicroStation doesn't, and the reason that the AutoCAD version doesn't, is because they're built on antiquated platforms. They were built to do so many other things than just buildings. But that's where Revit really shines. One, it was adopted by all the people. Okay. You're more likely to run into people who are doing the software, their BIM coordination in Revit than you are in CAD. So let's talk about that nasty subject. What did I just say about that ceiling, that framing? We need to come up with a way to do that framing in Revit where it's not so slow and where the coordination can happen. Tyler, the stuff you're talking about there, I'll be honest with you, I'm going to be long off this planet before any of that stuff even comes into play. Okay.
Yep.
You may be catching into that stuff as you're entering into your 40s and maybe 50s and thinking about retiring.
Mhm.
So
And that's not saying it's not valid. I think it's a great idea. I think it should be done, but it's hard to get people to spend the extra money.
These guys were trying to get me to actually do an internship working for them on a project in, I believe it was Thailand, and that's kind of their thing, is they train you to use these standards, their Kobe exchange information requirements, BIM execution plan, blah blah blah, and then they're willing to throw you straight into the fire. But I kind of had somebody, thankfully Brian, who was able to just teach me Revit, and that was something they weren't going to do, because I
Well-
talked to them about that and they just said no.
Yeah, well, that Kobe stuff is that's pretty high end stuff. I did a little bit of that at Rosendin.
Yes, yeah, but all that is organizing that database
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not drawing. It's more like what I was telling you.
for that potential digital twin. I think people want it. I think the Kobe, we definitely need. We should all teach ourselves a little bit about Kobe, what we know about it. Spend a night doing and talking about it. The BIM execution plan. That's what I keep referring to on this job, where they said all this beautiful stuff in the BIM execution plan and then did nothing about it.
Yep.
And that's the problem, is that list right there, I currently see as a lot of lip service. And in all honesty, what I've always had a dream, my dream, if you ask me for what my dream job would be, I would love to go review people's documents as a third party vendor and tell people whether or not what they're putting in their contract they're actually receiving. Because it saddens me how often people have signed up to do stuff that no one knows what it is, and I'm sitting here saying, I know what that is, and they didn't do it. Does that make any sense to you?
So
would
that
be
was
the-
kind of my next question is, for example, like Gaylor and the CCE and the fire guys, because they failed to do this shit, do you think that WT has an argument on money with them? Because they paid for it to be done, right?
Yeah, I think that a lot less gets done on the roof when Tyler and Jason are fighting, if that makes any sense. You follow my line of reasoning here?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I mean, this is something I'm thinking it's going to happen when the building's done. Because WT, there's a reason they're the fourth most profitable or something like that. They're good at screwing people out of their money historically.
Yeah.
I've heard the stories.
Yeah.
It happened to us at Rosenden. That my last project at Rosenden was with them.
They pay all these little interns to go take photos and document all this shit, and then at the end they just have an army of information they can just throw at people and argue about money. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen.
Well, that's where the funny part is. That BIM execution manual and their diversion from their execution manual from day one and repeatedly being advised about it on team meetings is going to cause them to have some holes in their system.
Recorded team meetings.
Yeah.
Recorded team meetings, correct. And that's what's so interesting about this position, because who knows? If that's what you're saying you think is going to happen, I might actually get to do my dream job. And
I genuinely believe that's what's going to happen.
Well,
That's something me and George talked about a lot.
Here's the irony. Here's the irony. Listen to me. Though I've hated many a nights, I've had my dream job my entire life. I knew my grandfather told me the same way people are probably telling you, Tyler, but when I was 15 years old in high school and I had a drafting class, and I told my grandfather, who was an electrical engineer and did the lighting all the way up I-95 from the tip of Florida all the way up to its destination up north, he looked at me and he said, Brian, you have to learn CAD. You know, the thing I was showing you at the beginning of this meeting tonight?
Yeah.
And that has allowed me to have my dream job, because this has been a never-ending path of learning. So if you think you're going to learn this software from this class and that's going to make you a master in it and that's going to make you something, it's not. I was trying to tell you, you better be prepared to learn the next software when it comes out so that these kinds of things can be accomplished. But your path starts in learning the Revit, which I think that you can do, and we are almost done doing. I love that we got off on this deviation. Do you see how this kind of real life conversation could be taken apart in the snippets and provided to other people so that they could hear this information and have a better understanding of these things? I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my screen. You played drawing a little bit of pipe, but buddy, you didn't get anywhere near what I was expecting done. I mean, what you did, I would expect to take less than 5 minutes.
Oh, you're not wrong. It's been rough these past couple days.
That's where I think that I want to have that understanding that you got to draw. And when Ginger watches this, she has to know she can be BIM too. She has to draw. You will not learn this stuff without drawing in it. I think the neat thing is I think if we finish going through this. So did you see anything on the systems that you couldn't figure out? I mean, you can see you got convert to flex duct, and down here you got flex pipe, and here you got flex duct. Why isn't there one that says convert to flex pipe or flex pipe? I don't know. But I do know that this is a common step that you need to do is on those supply lines. You want the last 4 feet or the last 6 feet. You see how it was all hard done? This
Yep.
allows you to convert it to flex. But at the same token, what you already drew on a real job with flex duct was some of the most difficult stuff. I'll be quite honest with you. Mike was learning how to do that same thing as you were, because he actually drew that. If you remember, I was disappointed because he didn't upload his file. For many years, he's never known how to run flex duct using that 3D view, right? Because with that 3D view, we could tie this in a knot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried to do that? Have you taken a piece of flex duct like this
And
said,
then done a 360 with it? Yeah, I have.
No, I'm talking about, I want you to see you tie that in a bow. You can do it with the use of the 3D cube if you use those lessons I showed you. And there's no reason to go over them again.
You're talking about using the vertices to adjust it and everything.
You use adding the vertices, but it's more than adding the vertices. And Eric will tell you, because I think Eric was even struggling on this job to do that. Let's see.
You have to do it in 3D. You have to do it in 3D. I struggled because I tried to do most of it in plan.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
The first time through, I did it in plan. The second time through, I did it in 3D. Much easier.
So let's let you in on a little secret here, Tyler. Okay, if you're drawing a duct, right? Oh, you know what? It's not even going to let me draw that second one because I did the worst thing ever. I started with an architectural template. As soon as you do it with a mechanical template, you have a chance to learn the systems tab, okay? Which is, I think, a pretty stupid thing, but hey, whatever. So what I was going to tell you is if I come in here and I make this thing 12 foot and I draw like that, now it's above that cut plane. So I could do multiple things. Well, I could do multiple things. And if you think you're so doggone good, we're about to roll out a real homework assignment and we'll post that file. I want to try to post the file as well, or a link to the file in the description to this video. I'm going to expect you to do that as we start to get our website going. Let's say I just put in 50 feet so I can see things way above. Okay, that's just one way to do it. Now, it's much better to control that better. But what I'm trying to show you is in 3D, right? If we look at this from the top view, now that is not what I would have expected. Oh, you know why? I bet there's a doggone filter. No? Eric, help me, buddy. What am I struggling with here? If this is it's not the right 3D view. That's why.
That's what I was.
Yep, that's a good call. But here's what I'm after. If I come in here and I say modify and I go trim, it says, nope, can't do it. But then one day you're going to be like, Brian, I swear I can do it. If you're in a plan view and you do it, it says no problem. I'll be glad to do it and even put that offset in there. So that's why Eric was telling you that, right? You can see how, though I was just bragging how the mechanical template does a lot, some of the things the mechanical template does is it doesn't even give you those systems working very good so that you can see them. Everything shows up gray. It's just laziness on the part of Autodesk, because as they were collecting the money for making the new buttons and the new tabs and the little tiny enhancements they did every year, they never worked on updating the families worth a damn. They never worked on updating the templates worth a damn. They really didn't work on using their own software, which is
never updated the families once. Never once updated the families.
I
Never
think
even
what
gave us
bothers
an
me
idea of
is
what a good family is.
I think what bothers me the most about using this software is how anti-user friendly it is as a whole. You have to dig through 4 different tabs to find one little setting to change the color. Like, it seems incredibly unnecessary because I've seen 3D modeling for video games and the way they do it. You don't have to dig for that kind of stuff. Usually the tabs up top that you've got, I don't know what you want to call that, where it's file all the way through modify.
Yep.
Usually there's a whole nother one of those. You see that drop down to the right of modify? You click that and you open a whole different window, and that's going to be
Well,
your
ironically,
shading, color, et cetera, et cetera.
ironically, that's available. Because what you're going to see is you don't have, after add-ins, you don't have Deluxe, Datasmith, Evolve Lab, MEP Design, PyRevit MEP. You probably don't have as many as I do. Now let's talk
No,
about
I
that.
don't. But what I'm saying is from a base standpoint of Revit, because those are add-ins. They do different things that the software just doesn't naturally have, which that's awesome. And I'm glad they do have that platform available. What I'm saying is the base version of Revit is so anti-user friendly that when I try to Google one solution, hypothetically, to figure out why this pipe's going, I'm going to get 16 different answers in 16 different ways, but I'm not going to get anything that actually says, okay, this is the correct way to do it.
Ironically, that was what I was sort of alluding to in the homework I told you that I'm about to assign to you and Ginger,
Oh,
and
God.
to Eric, and to Misty, and to myself. Okay?
Mhm.
It's a little game called Where's the Marble?
Oh, shit.
And there's going to be at least 18 different ways that they've hidden that marble. And your job is to go find all of those marbles. Okay?
Okay.
When you're bored, you give that to someone to play in Revit. We played plenty of
Well,
games
I'll
doing
be
that.
honest with you. I'll be honest with you. We're not going to go on to the advanced class until you can find at least 60% of those marbles. Okay? Because there's going to be some that I promise you I may not be able to find. It was a very good exercise. It was a very difficult task. And that alone is how you should decide if you want to hire your next Revit person. So if there's someone watching this saying, how do I know if my guy knows anything? You give them the marble test.
I don't know. I signed up for Rosenden and had to take some BIM Revit test online,
Yes.
and I failed it.
I was just gonna say I took that. What you said, you failed it?
Yeah,
How?
because you only give them 5 minutes. You can't go find the answer. If you don't know the answer, they know it.
Misty, before I moved to California, I interviewed and was offered a job with Rosenden in Arizona. And when I took the test, they told me I got the highest score in the shortest time they've ever seen. And most of it was electrical commands, but it was all logical. And because I have, the MEP and the M&P and the architectural, it was just logical stuff as to what I had to do.
I'm calling bullshit. I'm calling bullshit.
Bet
I'm
me.
sorry, but I'm
No.
calling
Eric knows
bullshit.
more BIM management stuff than me, so
Bet
he
me
knows
money,
the
Brian.
Wait a
names of
second.
things.
Wait a second. I'm calling bullshit for one simple reason. Eric had the advantage of struggling to tears to try to do the electrical on a project. Remember?
Nephron?
I might have. Yes, it was Elrod.
Nephron, the Eldeco guys, they didn't have anyone, and so they offered me to do it. I did it in my evenings, and it was a nightmare.
You hated it. Oh my God, it killed you.
But I'm going to tell you exactly what it was. You work with the panel families that you start with.
Yep, that's exactly right, because it wasn't until 2026. Yes, 2026, which is the version that was just released in April, even though we're only in 2025, before you could make those panels work, because they were just like the fittings. You couldn't rehost them. They just fixed that fatal flaw. And
the new version is 2025.
Yeah.
Is it? How did it get?
They do it the year you're heading into. I don't know why they're a year ahead.
Oh,
It's like car manufacturers.
You're right. Because for the first year, I haven't played with the trial because I don't think I'll be doing BIM anymore for when someone calls me and says my job's in 2025. I don't think that'll happen because look at the job we're working on. What did Whiting Turner say that it needed to be done in? An antiquated, obsolete software that doesn't even supported by Revit anymore. So back to your BIM execution manual, put me on the stand and let me tell you how you're requiring us to put this in a software that isn't even supported by the manufacturer anymore, and you want to hold weight? Then I'm going to talk to you about gap modeling. Gap modeling, the responsibility of Whiting Turner, things like window washing bollards and the rest of the stuff. Let me tell you what, they do not want to pick that fight, okay? It's going to be interesting, Tyler, when we get there. I'm looking forward to it. Back to the systems. You've got to remember, the big thing is they want you to draw the fixtures in and connect them to your trunk lines. However, just like the problem you started out with, that connection has to be pointed in a direction that it can connect to the trunk line. So ironically, if a sink has a drain pointing down, which they almost all do, they're not going to figure out how to connect up to the system because they're going to try to come out of there sideways. Do you know what I mean by that? Does that make any sense?
The auto route's not smart enough.
No, the family's so stupid because it was never updated that it doesn't point in the right direction to do that connection.
Yeah.
So they tell you how it should run, but they start you running in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw. I think it was before we hopped in here. I was trying to draw.
How did you draw the same thing as? Oh, you were looking at my screen. I'm like, how did he draw exactly what I have drawn on my screen?
I didn't.
All right. So
tap.
After the systems, we're gonna make some ground tonight. Ginger's gonna have some homework to do. We're at 1 hour. You're gonna be amazed how quick we go here. Insert. My recommendation, don't do it.
Oh, dear God. Yeah, that
It's
looks
bad.
like problems waiting to happen.
Here's the problem. You're talking, well, linking a Revit, personally, I always do by coming down here and saying new link. Okay?
I'm not
But if you wanted if you want, this is where we would link in the electrical Revit file. Okay?
Right.
So that we can see, or the architectural Revit file. All I'm saying is, instead of me going to this button up here, I normally come down here and I right click and I say new link. Okay?
Gotcha.
As we said, you can do everything 2 different ways. This link IFC, yeah, right. If I have an IFC file, I'm going to convert that thing to Revit and then I'm going to clean it up. Because the IFC is just going to make you have one of those AutoCAD files like we looked at the beginning of this video, so slow that no one wants to work in it. Linking IFC, I'd rather put fish hooks under my fingernails. LinkCAD is somehow worse than Link IFC. If you're wanting to have CAD in your Revit file, you definitely don't know what you're doing. Okay.
If you put CAD in, you want to make sure you bind it and explode it so that all the stuff comes out as elements.
And what he is being there is a completely sarcastic son of a bitch.
Like, when you said that, right? I was like, what are you saying?
Well, you hear us laughing, Tyler? It's no joking matter. Don't link.
Sounds like pain.
Brian, Brian, go to line types.
Go to line type. I don't have a bad file.
No, I just want to show them what line types looks like.
Line types. All right, that's underneath manage, right?
Yeah.
Annotate. Oh, never mind. Line type.
No, Misty would be right as well. This is where we would have the settings, and you're talking
line
about
styles,
this, right?
So Those are our line styles. If you bring an AutoCAD file, every line style or layer in AutoCAD becomes one of these, which you will see scrolling through becomes hell.
And if you would look at those projects, that's part of the problem. And then they're very difficult to delete without an add-in program. There's just so many reasons not to bring the CAD in. The biggest reason is if you want that CAD information in, what you should really be doing is getting an image of it, printing it to an image, making it an image, and bringing the raster image in, which is the only thing on the insert that's really worth the darn, which is
decal.
No, a decal's not it. Well, how do you insert an image?
Insert from file?
I just drag it from my computer window right into your plan view. Just drag it in.
That's exactly what I do.
So wait a second. So where is that on the insert toolbar? Everyone in unison. Thanks, AutoCAD.
It's
It's
great.
an add-on button.
It's got to be. I don't know where it is.
Is it right next to manage images? The arrow with the image? That's grayed out.
They're right there, PDF. It says PDF and image aren't, because you're in 3D, you can't load a PDF or an image.
Ah, good call. Good call. There it is. Image.
Okay.
Now, that's not how we stick the images in. They just both told you how we stick images in. You just
Drag it straight in.
drag it straight from a drag and drop from an Explorer window.
Same with families. I think you showed him to do that with families from a folder last time.
He did.
Yes. Now, you'll see somehow they got load family in here. Maybe it's a good way to load your family. But at the end of the day, the only one that you really might do is a decal, which the decals are really nonsense. You only get to see the decal when you render the view. All in all, I'm telling you, as an experienced user, the insert tab is worthless. All right, it's next to worthless.
It's gonna make it run slower, and it's gonna.
You realize these two, Link IFC and Link CAD, are different than insert CAD, or I'm sorry, import CAD. Now, here's a little story that's sort of funny. One of the reasons Revit could not catch on in the beginning, before they sold out to Autodesk, was because they just laughed at anyone that said, well, we would use Revit, but we need to be able to import this CAD. And they just said, no, we ain't doing it. It doesn't work. We're not going to try to do it. We're not even going to make an attempt to do it. And it wasn't until Autodesk bought the software, they came up with the command to link or insert or import the CAD. It was a bad idea.
Thus slapping a governor on Revit.
Thus destroying more Revit files than anything known to mankind. Even the worst worker hasn't destroyed as many files as those two buttons. So that was a nice long 8-minute rant about the not bringing in other types of files. Okay. And I honestly believe in that. That's why I don't try to link in CAD that's come from my structural engineer. If he's done it in CAD, I'm going to go in, and I have done on multiple jobs, brought in their file and redrew it all in Revit, because Revit structure, it pretty much works. Not quite as much as the fabricators would like. What is that? Triforma? Is that the right one?
Tekla.
Yeah, Tekla. Tekla still has them beat on the structural, as far as I'm concerned. The problem is neither one of them deal with one of the most important aspects, and they say it can't even be done, and that is the fireproofing on the steel, which is considered gap modeling, which absolutely was not done according to the BIM execution manual. See where I went with that, Tyler?
Which is also probably a #1 cause of conflicts of stuff up high.
That's exactly right, because everyone thinks they're getting uptight to the steel, and then the spray fireproofing comes in, and then that first layer needs to move down by 2 inches, and then the second layer needs to move down by 2 inches. And why the hell are we having all these problems? Oh, because of your gap modeling.
And then my guy's got to come in with fucking scrapers and take it off.
No,
so they can hang
no,
it.
no, no, don't say that. Don't say that ever. Don't say that ever. Do not say that. You did not say that. All right. Anyway, we went into the annotate pretty good. Was there anything on the annotate? I know you haven't had a chance. Understand, when I get back from my little trip out west, we're going to get into the next step of this program, which is for me to teach you how to go steal a job. And I'm going to call it that. It's basically a way to sneak in the back door to do BIM coordination.
I think you've kind of talked to me a little bit about it by building their model before they.
Absolutely. The analyze is for the engineers. And because I have not had a chance to work with that many engineers, I've worked with some that wanted really desperately to figure this out, how to make it automatically size their pipes and size their ducts. Most of this stuff, I know the structural engineers, they still, that's another thing Tekla has on them, is they can't run their calcs as well. So I haven't really run into too many people who've really mastered this section, but more importantly, it's for designers and engineers, which I really don't ever want to be. Can't even imagine, people have asked me, why did you become an engineer? And it's like, why would you want all that responsibility and a license and a stamp and all that? I think those people are nuts.
So is this tab where you would hypothetically check your CFMs after you've drawn your duct?
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And I'll be honest, I'd be interested in trying to learn a little bit better how to make those families to do that stuff. But as for right now, I don't see there's very much of a demand. What there is a great demand for is this BIM coordination for the second step, right? The designers have already sort of learned to design, and let me tell you what, they've only scratched the surface. But we're now starting to get into this BIM coordination like we've done on this project. And like you showed us, they want to take it even further down that life cycle, which is, as I told you guys, I think in the last session, how we could really make a lot of money is prepping this model to take it to that next step for the client. But we're going to decide whether or not we do that after I come back from out west. Fair enough? After I've given Tyler and Ginger enough time to actually draw something that I could, pretend to grade as a teacher, so I could show you, you see how you did this? This would be a better way to do that, so that you can grow your skills by clicking and learning how you could have clicked better. Make sense?
Yeah.
That's the second class. Tyler, that class I want to be done as Rogue. No, your BIM. Your BIM will be gone for that. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, Analyze tab. As I said, we may play with coming back in here at some point when we're trying to get when we got some engineers on board. But until we get more feedback from engineers, there's not much us laymen can really do with that. Massing and site. I apologize for anyone who's watching these streams and working in 2025 or 2024 because they got rid of the topo surface, which we will eventually end up in a class. We'll end up doing in the class. There's a lot of people who don't think the topo surface worked, and for many years it didn't work. The gist of the topo surface is basically you're putting in these points, and people don't generally like how the results are. Let's see, if I was to raise these 2 points up here, let's see, can I even see them? Anybody have an idea why I can't even get to those site points?
Click the green arrow.
No. Eric, this is going to require an Eric or Misty.
Is it a 3D issue?
Huh?
Is it a 3D issue?
Nope.
fine mode. Is your
You're so
topo?
close. You're so
I
close.
would look under topo just because I see the points. The topo surface need to be
Is it a
on? Or
VV thing?
No, excellent questions. All excellent directions. Watch this. I have to actually get out of it because I can't even change the thing I need to change while I'm in the view. You remember what I yell at you all the time about? Be very careful with the discipline. If you're in a mechanical coordination, a mechanical view, you cannot do that. Now that it's a coordination, you would see I could draw those.
Wow.
And now I could change the elevation to 10 feet and I would get these contour lines and this thing that's looking like that. Then I could come back in here and I could place some points at 5 foot. And make a little area on that hill, right? Little flat area. And the way I could see that much better would be to turn on my section box. Because the rule of it is, that's another lovely one. This is from that mechanical template. How many times have you gone to that mechanical template and you didn't know that for some reason in the mechanical template under VV, section boxes, which you would think are 3D, but this says annotation category, are turned off. See?
Oh, that hurts my
There's
brain.
so many mechanical people that didn't even know how to use a section box because their template has it turned off. But you can see that when a section box hits a piece of terrain, it actually looks pretty doggone cool. Oh, a little more. And obviously the last one. When that section box is totally involved in it, now you can start to see how that grade works. And I will tell you, we're going to do some amazing stuff with grades and with railings and making a sight. I do believe in putting a sight in your object. Now, I know that they didn't fix this to recently, but if I went to this top view and I drew one of these systems, a duct. I know a duct seems stupid, but you'll see. And I had that duct because maybe that was an actual duct bank going into my site. This was a bug with the first run of the topo solids. What most people don't understand is all of your other system families have this arrangement made with a topo surface that they actually project. You see how that's a 1 inch sticking out of the land? Maybe if I make my lines thinner, you might be able to see it better on that screen. So the idea is ducts and pipes automatically stick a little bit out of the ground so that you can see them. Now, me personally, I like to get a little bit better than that. I think what I ended up doing was putting a transparency on the ground so we could actually see where that duct runs. It's important to be able to get those spot elevations, to be able to do a lot of connections. I think one of the big electrical jobs that I had to do was basically all the electrical work in the grade around one of these big data centers because the people were really struggling with it. Because probably exactly what I just showed you. They probably drew the terrain and said, I can't finish it. I can't hit okay. What the heck? So that was what I was trying to tell you was on massing of sites. This topo surface, then the site components are really neat. Let's see. Oh, my window's on the other screen. Bring it back here. You could go to planting. The neat thing about those things are they are actually hosted. If I wanted to take those, pick a new host, I could host them up on there. Then you would see they're floating up in the air. Why might I want to do that, Tyler? Why might I want to do what I just did? Well, because maybe there's a wall around here, and
No
that's
garden
actually a
bed.
planting bed, right?
Mhm.
And if I took this, and of course, right here is my top is at level 1. I could make this thing say go to level 2, which is where I just stuck those plants. They would be at the proper location. Okay. Bottom line, topo surface. Play with it. Use it. These ones here, these massing, until I start landing job with those big fancy architects that are making the Guggenheim and stuff like that, I just don't see a need for it. That's not in the real world. That's like 2-3% of the architectural industry. That's the Facebooks and those kinds of things. And I don't typically work on those jobs. You can learn them. It's not that difficult, but I don't want to get into it in this round. So we got the topo surface. We got the site.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was trying to catch you before you went on. Would you say, just from your knowledge, that possibly those more difficult ones might even be done in something different, or use something like the Rhino or whatever?
Yeah, probably. You would probably find that the people who are wanting to make those fancy faces are probably using a more sophisticated software to do it than Revit. However, you can, and I would be glad to have a class on it. I just don't want to sidetrack to you until you've drawn something and you say, Brian, I want this to be a big, important part of my building, and that requires masses, then I'll teach you the masses. Okay? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to get all the high value buttons off of these tabs so that you can actually do work. Parking component, I've never been really impressed by it. In the end, what we're going to do is we're going to teach you how to lay down a satellite image and a parking image on those things, because really most of the site stuff isn't going to be a good effect in Revit. We're going to be pushing that into Twinmotion, and we're going to be pushing that in the Deluxe so that it works there. Obviously, you guys, you want to name some of the other softwares out there? Lumion, 3D Max. There's other ways to render. I'm without a doubt sold on the only way I would do anything is with Twinmotion. And we are definitely going to have a class in Twinmotion. And Tyler, when you do that, you're going to be able to show your friends what you're doing and blow their minds. Okay? Because they're going to think you've become a video game maker. It's pretty cool stuff. And the truth is, you could carry your butt right over to a video game maker and start making environments for them. Okay.
Have you played with Unreal Engine at all?
Yes, that's
what it is.
That's what Twinmotion is. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. I had a feeling.
Yeah, that's what I actually showed you guys when I first got there. Now, the split face, this is generally how we make parking and other kinds of things. The idea is I can split a face of a topo surface with a closed shape. Okay, it could be multiple lines. It could be, this is where we generally assign the asphalt and that kind of stuff. Now, the interesting thing is it probably would have been a little bit off. It would have done it, but it would have been a little off. When I'd finish, it's put this split surface on here so that I could come back and make this another material. See here where I got material. And let me have anything with color. Carpet, that looks like color. You would see, now I can put on that shape, and that's how we're going to build our parking. And we will show you a way to put curves and stuff in a later class. But for right now, good command. Not so great. Split face important. This merge surfaces. I'm sorry. I just did a sub-region was the one I did. The split surface and the merge surface Did I do that right? No, I didn't. Eric, Misty, you know what I just did? I split the surface instead of sub-regioning. This should have been a sub-region. It would be done exactly the same way. What I've now just done is I've made this topo surface and a whole new topo surface, which is in here, which is where a lot of people make a mistake. And what I mean by that, if I isolate, you'll see that this guy is just this one surface. All right. And the reason we do that is because then you can come in here, and if you have made all of this surface on a phase of existing, okay, and then make your new split surface on new construction, this is how you can actually calculate the cut and the fill when you on a site when you're starting to regrade. So as I say, the split surface and merge surfaces is all about that. And I'm going to get to that later because it's not a high value, but the sub-region is what I thought I was doing a second ago. And that's where you can make this closed shape. Take that closed shape and give it another material. And this split surface, I'm sorry, sub-region, I could actually move it around. You see? Now this one over here, watch what happens if I do the split surface and move it around. Oh, now I got a hole and another surface. See the difference between the two? So what I'm after is stay away from split surface and merge surface until somebody wants to know how much cut and how much fill am I going to have on this job. What you want to be using is sub-region. So the commands for massing and site are topo surface, site, and sub-region. The rest of them, not so great. The only one I didn't discuss was a building pad, which the building pad is sort of neat in that when we draw it in, this would absolutely not be what you want to do for the dirt at the bottom, at the top of the planting bed. What this is where a building is going to sit on. Okay. And what a building pad does is wherever that building pad is, that's where your land stops. See if I move that up, see my land going up. And ironically, some people will say, if I edit that boundary, one of the neat things about a building pad is you can put a slope on it. So if you wanted to slope this grade, take this guy and not go height, but go slope, you could say, I'd like to slope this thing at a 1/4 inch per foot. Now, when you do that, you would see that it's actually sloped. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Collaborate. I'm sorry, we got 2 minutes, and that's about all collaborate deserves. These two commands right here. Eric, Misty, help me. What do they do?
Work sets, fun when you work with a whole bunch of people. And you don't know how to turn something off and you can't think of anything. You say, okay, I'll put it on a work set and we'll turn that work set off.
I hate you for even saying that.
But that's what the companies do it for.
Work sets are utilized like she said when there's multiple people working on it.
You're missing the number one thing. What kind of file do I have the second I enable work sets?
A bigger one.
Essential file.
Thank you.
That's right.
I agree with you, Eric.
No, I forgot about the central file. It's been a minute since I've had to deal with that.
So to boil that down, Tyler, work sets is how it allows multiple people to work in one Revit file at the same time using a thing called a central file. which almost everyone is so confused about that they still call their files central files. Okay.
Is this kind of where we're talking, kind of like live file?
Well, no, this requires you to all be on the same network. So if you all have the F drive, the Q drive, the Z drive, and you and
Cloud.
all
Cloud BIM 360.
Cloud BIM 360 is also another type of central file. That's where Autodesk is, and I'll be honest with you. I think it's a fatal flaw and a fatal mistake. I do not believe in central files, and I will go to my grave not working in central files. And everyone else in the rest of the world is going to disagree with me on that, and I'm fine with that. Okay. So you will need to know better about work sets and about how to collaborate and how to do a central file. And I will be glad to teach you. I do not want to teach that in this fundamentals class.
Let me ask you: is Collaborate a good way to actually teach somebody how to actively use it live? Because from what
No.
I understand, it allows you to click on my screen to a degree.
No.
No,
Don't.
Okay.
The only thing, yeah, no.
no, absolutely not. I had to look at the help just to see if they slipped one in, but no, absolutely not.
I was
However,
thinking it was something like TeamViewer where you're both working on the same screen.
no, that's not what it is. And what it is it's going to tell you you can't save the file because Mike moved that duct and you're not allowed to move that duct until Mike syncs his file. And now you can't get any work done because when Mike goes to sync his file, remember, we're working in big giant files. Mike's like, oh man, it's going to take me 20 minutes to sync that file. So now everyone's wasted and thrown away a bunch of time. And meanwhile, Brian's smoking your ass with a simple Revit file. Okay, that's why I don't believe in central files. That's
From experience, from experience working on a data center at Rosendin with probably 16 to 20 people working in the file, if you try to hit synchronize at lunchtime or something like that, you go into a queue. And if you're in the queue too long, it just says, sorry, didn't synchronize. And then you got to redo it. It becomes a nightmare and it literally will eat your entire day.
So you come back from lunch thinking that you synchronized, but you didn't synchronize. Now the first thing you have to do after lunch is hit synchronize and go talk about the football games and a couple other things at the water cooler while your file saves. I can show you because I did a mathematical calculation and I tried to advise a firm that they had spent 240 man hours in 1 month with just the amount of saves that their people were doing in their job, on their job. 240 hours of wait time in 1 month on the job. That's why I'm telling you, I started the conversation with it doesn't work. I'm going to finish the conversation with it doesn't work. Show
Sounds
history.
like playing Russian roulette with a magazine-fed handgun instead of a revolver.
It's very close. Very close. Like I said, you will still need to learn how to do it. Mike does believe in using central files because it is important if you're trying to work on a team. However, I believe that you should own your file. That means if there's any question about a problem in your file, you're the owner. You're the one who's going to have to fess up to it. The second you introduce work sets, you really can't come up with who did that.
You can't track who made what movements.
You actually can.
You can, but it becomes more of an exercise in wasting time than it does in resolving problems.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Show history. This works on non-central files. And this would show you everybody and when they actually works on central files.
Yeah, it does.
Well. It shows you when everybody saved. You can actually track your time in a job. So, if most of the companies out there knew exactly how to use show history, I've written an Excel spreadsheet where I can take that history, dump it into the spreadsheet, and calculate if a person hasn't done a save in every 4 hours and they're not working on the file, I can tell you how many hours they've been working on the file. It can be used. Okay. Use it as an advantage. Use it as something to make your job better. Don't use it the way most people would, as a weapon. Okay. Restore backup. I don't. Oh, see, that's because that's a work set. That's a central file. So I've never really done that. That's probably allows you to go back a couple steps. Remember, I told you the guy who deleted all the dimensions? That
Mhm.
was where they were faced with the choice. What do? We can go back to last Thursdays when this happened and lose everyone's work for 3 days, or we can go back and
Redimension.
mention everything, which that was a hell of a conversation. This publish settings, that's with a BIM 360, and I'm not going to get into because this is Revit 20 and Net 2020, and they've changed it 5 times since then, probably more than that. BIM 360 used to be free, used to be included in the software, but in 2018 they decided they could charge people for it. So that's where they've lost my interest.
Rental subscriptions.
It's a BIM 360 account as well as your Revit account. The copy monitor, I've never been a believer in it. This is because so many of the families were written bad and needed a wall to be hosted to, so you can copy the wall from the architecture sort of into your file, and then through the link, and then you can host your toilet on that wall because you haven't drawn a wall. Bad command. Don't do it. I don't like it. Coordination review. I don't really know what that one's about. Oh, if you've done the copy monitor, so which I don't do, so that's
Yeah,
why.
it tells you why something's not.
Yep, that makes sense. And I believe this is as well. The settings. This will allow you to do a bunch of the copy monitor. I'm not a big believer in that. And then that probably also falls into the reconcile hosting. Now the last one, you can get me. See, the last one, right now, most people think that to run an interference check, you have to do it in Navis. For some reason, I think that Autodesk people even tell you that. Maybe it's because they get more money for Navis, but for whatever reason, you can actually run an interference in Revit, which I do commonly. And I could say, see if any of my ducts hit any of my walls. And what would happen is this little window would pop up that says, yes, indeed, you do have things running into each other. That duct hits that wall right there. And this duct hits that wall right there. You say, where's that other wall you're talking about, Brian? Well, it's right on the other side of this thing. See it? So I can say it hits that wall and it hits that wall, and I could go resolve those problems. We absolutely believe in doing the interference detection. So in final review, you're going to see that what we just did is we covered the massing and site. We covered the massing and site, and we covered the collaborate. We've already gone through the view. So guess what we have to do last? This manage tab. And there's quite a bit of stuff on the manage tab. So that's going to be a great one for Sunday. And then it's going to be basically general review because you've been exposed to everything. What's this area called right here, Tyler? What's that?
Your browser.
What's this one?
Properties.
Properties and browser. After the manage tab, all we need to do is give you a little bit better understanding about families and groups. What comes below Revit links? Anybody?
The black
Anybody?
screen. Nothing.
What?
Nothing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant down the browser.
In the browser. If I create an assembly, the assembly is the only thing that's going to come below Revit links.
Oh.
Okay. You
I'm
didn't know
sorry,
that
I
one,
was
did
on
you?
mute again. I knew that when I was saying it. I remember I told you I did all my
I
homework.
ain't giving you the points. We don't have any record of you saying anything.
That's fine.
We have
recorded,
no
huh?
record. We don't believe you.
All right.
Hey, I think it was a good one.
I did want to comment. I don't think I'm going to be able to tune in Sunday. I got a little vacation myself this weekend.
You just want to go to Monday? I'll be honest. You can call the shots at this point. The last thing I want to do is if Ginger's on vacation, and that means she's probably going to be, if she comes back Sunday night at the best case, and she's not going to want to do a class. When do you want to do your next class?
I would say Monday's fine.
Monday's fine for you?
Yeah. I honestly
Are you
almost
going to
want
draw
to do it.
something? Are you going to draw something more substantial than that piece of shit you keep opening up on your screen?
Yeah, I've got one I haven't opened up yet, but
Oh, I had a little.
I didn't say it's
speed.
elevated. I just said there's something else. But this weekend I'm going to a Airbnb with my girlfriend and her coworkers, and I can just tell I'm probably not going to be able to sit at my laptop long.
Well, then why don't we push it out to Monday? I won't expect a lot of homework completed. Monday we'll try to cover the manage tab. Okay, because we don't really need. I can show you from some sample jobs. When you get back next week, I want to get you started on the website and the rest of that stuff.
Sounds good to me.
I was thinking about actually doing it for the weekend, but since you were going out of town, we'll just push that to next week. Understand that I'm looking like basically got 2 weeks to wrap up this fundamental class. We only really need 2 more days to wrap up fundamentals. So I think if we go over the manage tab on Monday and give you guys a couple days to draw, and then maybe have one more wrap up class on Thursday, and maybe we'll even have one final wrap up on Friday where we can have a drink and we can talk about some stuff. I've given you enough time. You don't need to draw this weekend, but next week, better get some clip time in. Sound fair?
Yeah.
All right. Eric, thank you very much for joining. Misty, thank you for joining.
Sure. Have a good night.
I hope you guys all have a wonderful night.
Have a
Tyler,
good night.
did you have anything
Have a
else
good
for me?
No.
You got a real big kudos. I want you to know. You got a real big kudos. You really helped Mike out with having that Deluxe ready. So thank
I had
you.
a feeling, of course.
I appreciate it. That's good teamwork. You guys have a good weekend. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We're gonna do some traveling as well. So you guys all be good.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you guys.
Bye.
Bye.